Let's get right into this review for Reminders of Him. Alright, so this film is directed by Vanessa Caswell. The film stars Micah Monroe and Tyreek Withers as the main leads. I loved Micah with her performance in Longlegs, so I was definitely excited to check out the other roles she'll continue to star in. The story here is based on a popular Colleen Hoover romance novel. There's been several cinematic adaptations based off of Colleen's work in recent years. With that being said, none of them so far in the cinematic format were bad per se, but there hasn't been a story yet to truly stick with me as a top-tier romantic drama. But I will say though, I sort of dug the trailer presentation for this film, more so than the other two live adaptations so far. The casting looked great too, so this was one I knew I wanted to check out at the theaters, as I did see some potential with this screenplay. And now that I've seen the film, what did I think about the cinematic package here? I thought this was another decent time, but not without some of the similar flaws to the other Colleen Hoover story adaptations. To start with the positives, I thought the team nailed the set locations and the general aesthetic paired with this story. A lot of the visuals worked in its presentation, and most importantly for the characters living and breathing in this world. I also appreciated the clean-cut cinematography to it all, so kudos to the team behind the scenes. Another positive I found was Micah Monroe. She was great as the main lead, and there's some fun segments to highlight the intricacies of her character and the internal struggle she's going through. I also found the general conclusion to this story to be pretty solid, even though the journey to Act 3 wasn't all too clean. Everything did come full circle by the end, and I was satisfied enough with the general experience to it all. Now to get into the negatives. To start off, I found the story to drag at times throughout the acts. There are some slow burn, slice of life segments paired with this story, which didn't necessarily bother me per se, but the inherent issue is that the overall storyline remains fairly predictable until the end, and I saw some of the pivotal story beats coming a mile away. So yeah, I could see how some minor sub-story elements could have been shaved off completely to save some time and up the pacing. Another core negative I found to this experience is the lead romance between the main characters. There's something very cheesy and cringeworthy at times with how this plays out and is integrated into the core story. If anything, I honestly thought this film could benefit greatly if it got rid of that romance entirely and made this just a drama about healing, friendship, and regrets. And this leads me into my next point about how this is a perfect example for not everything translating well into a live adaptation format. Like, I can totally see how fictional romance novel readers would absolutely gobble up the way this story plays out with all of the guilty pleasures to the pivotal story moments. But when it comes to the live adaptation, I think it inherently becomes more cringe-worthy than not when you finally see it all realistically play out rather than mentally in your mind. Like the very moment in the story when the romance began between the main leads at my theater, there was an audible impending doom, cringe atmosphere I heard coming from most people. There was also one particular confrontation sequence that was just too cheesily unbearable for me. Like, I instinctively didn't want to watch that scenario play out because of the cringe being induced inside of me. At the end of the day though, my final score for Reminders of Him ends up being 7 out of 10. This was still a solid one-time watch experience. I can't remotely say this was close to being a top-tier romance drama, but I was still able to appreciate some of the darker themes and tone the story was reaching for. I also appreciated some story execution and the overall message by the end. Also, I do think fans of the book will ultimately appreciate seeing this live adaptation. And if you're okay with and into the cheese, the guilty pleasure, and B-tier romances that stoops into the C-tier zone, you literally can't go wrong with your experience here. Anyways, thanks for checking this review out. I'll have more coming soon, so stay tuned for that. Like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I shall see you on my next upload. Until then, stay safe out there, and peace!